Hey, it's Stephanie. I'm so excited for you guys to be here today. I'm here with Melissa, and she is a trauma informed functional health coach. And yes, that's a mouthful, but I'm sure there's a reason why it's so long. And I'm super excited for you to be here today. And let's just get started. Tell me about your journey to become a functional health coach, trauma
Yeah.
informed functional health coach. Tell me all about it.
Yeah. It's a long there it was it's been a journey, I'll tell you what. So I'm a nurse by trade. I became a nurse in 2010, 14 years ago. And that was a process in itself. I got there by all of the things that I had been through as a child and a young adult. So when I was young, super young, my parents were both drug addicts. There was a lot of abuse, addiction, um, in the family unit inside the house. My dad was uh, very mentally unstable, unwell, and beat my mom and my older brother a lot. And everything that goes along with the addiction. So, like, periods of homelessness and people in and out of the house, just this, like, kind of general sense of no safety. And that was when I was really little. They divorced when I was 6 because my mom really wanted to get clean and my dad didn't or couldn't. Um, didn't want to and also couldn't, I think. Um, and he left and never really came back in any significant way. I saw him only a handful of times until his death. And, um, you know, as a result of everything my mom had been through, and I have since learned through my healing journey that she was, she had, before my dad, had been abused by her parents, and her parents had been abused by their parents, and so on. And, it goes back at least 5 generations that I'm aware of. So, as a result of all of that unhealed trauma and really, like, deep wounds that my mom had, she was very verbally abusive to us, and she was just completely emotionally unavailable. She was not able to be like a loving, healthy role model or interactive parent. She very much, like, isolated herself. There would be, entire days that would go by where we wouldn't see her. And if we tried to, like, knock on the door or ask her something, like, we were just met with um, verbal abuse. Um, and she, yeah, she was just gone pretty much, there, but not there.
Yeah, it's
um,
like what you see in the movies, kind of.
yeah,
That was your real life.
yeah, we were really, like, I was really, my brother was 5 years older than me. And so, like, I remember being like 8, 9, 10. And, like, my brother was, like, getting into, like, being a teenager and kind of, like, out with his friends. And I was the oldest of 3 girls. So I had two little sisters, one of which has special needs. And I was like their parent. Like, I remember, like, making food for them and, like, cleaning the kitchen and, like, folding, doing laundry at like 8. I remember that, which is kind of crazy because I have an 8-year-old now. So it's, like, really strange to, like, look back and think of, like, oh, I was this age, and my 8-year-old it's a boy, but, like, he's so little. Like, I can't imagine, like, treating him the way that I was treated.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she was like that my whole childhood. And then when I was 15, I survived a school shooting at my high school. And then when I was 18, my brother was killed tragically in a tragic accident right in front of me. So that, like, all of that was really, I had severe mental health issues before the shooting, before my brother's death, but those events really, like, exponentially worsened things for me to the point where I was, like, suicidal. I didn't think I had anything to live for when my brother died. I didn't want to live. I really wanted to die. I tried to make that happen. And I was very, very broken. And somehow, in the midst of all of the chaos immediately following my brother's death, I had a moment of clarity and decided that I wanted to become a nurse because I wanted to help people the way that the nurses helped him when he was in the ICU for a couple of days. He was in an accident. He had a brain injury, so we decided to donate his organs, and that whole process is not something that happens very quickly. So he was, in the care of an ICU for a couple of days, and so the nurses were just literally angels on earth, and just took such good care of my family, and you know really brought me like under their wings. Like I remember one of the nurses, like I had such a hard time, like even, I mean, I was 18. So like I had no idea, right? Like I had no experience in medicine whatsoever, but like I just couldn't understand, like, why is his body here? But you're saying like he's dead? Like this doesn't make sense. Like he was declared brain dead. So I remember like them bringing me over and like showing me like the scans and the MRI, and like one of the neurosurgeons like taking me into a room and like sitting there with me for like an hour, like trying to explain it. And like I had a
Wow.
million questions, and just everybody was just so kind. And I was like, all of a sudden, a couple weeks later, that's what I just had a moment of clarity, and I was like, that's what I want to do. I think I always knew I was going to be a healer. I think I was destined to be a healer with my story, but
Yeah.
and I used to want to be um I used to tell my mom, when I was younger, I wanted to be a pediatrician. I've always loved kids, and I thought that I kind of always knew I would be in some way in medicine. And that's really how I came into nursing. And then while I was going through nursing school, I was super sick, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. My brother had just died. I had debilitating panic. I had, you know, days where I would just like couldn't get out of bed because the depression was so bad, the anxiety was so bad, the panic was so bad. And somehow, by the grace of God, I was able to finish nursing school. And around the time of like when I was in my early 20s, I was about 24. I had I had spent the last, from 18 to 24 really, really unwell, just super sick, and panicked, panic, insomnia, depression, suicidal ideations, all the things.
Yeah.
And I couldn't ever seem to like calm myself down. And my boyfriend at the time, he's now my husband, he suggested that I tried meditation. I did, and that really opened a door to like kind of a whole new realm of healing that I had not experienced professionally or personally as a patient, while I was, from the time that I was 18 to 24, going to the doctor for all the various symptoms that I was having. I was just given pills. I wasn't ever asked about the trauma or the stress or
Yeah,
anything like that.
that's what I was gonna ask you about the PTSD, and the doctors never said, "Hey, I think you might be suffering from post-traumatic stress."
Well, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress after the shooting happened. So
Oh,
I think it was just like it was a diagnosis that I had.
okay,
But it
not
was,
an
and it wasn't like a, gosh, it sounds like you have PTSD. Like you can actually like heal this, and you can actually like recover from this, and all of these symptoms like could be related, because I was having physical symptoms. I was having gut issues and skin issues and all kinds of crazy symptoms. And so yeah, that I feel like that system, like as a professional nurse and as a patient, I was
right.
not being served in the way, like I wasn't healing in that system. And I started to realize the disconnect from my own personal beliefs and desires to truly make an impact and help people. Like, don't get me wrong, I like thank God for modern medicine and like penicillin and ICUs and ERs and
Yeah.
ORs. Like I believe in conventional traditional medicine to that extent, but I also don't think that, well, no, I feel like we do a horrible job at actually like teaching people health and keeping people healthy. And so
Definitely.
that was kind of, yeah, that was kind of like the evolution. And about 5 years ago, I really like realized like this system, this model, like working in traditional medicine where you're just like patient in and out, patients, like revolving door of patients, and you're not actually making an impact. You're just giving them pills and procedures. I realized that that just didn't align with me anymore. And I wanted to do something else. I wanted the freedom and flexibility of working for myself so I could be home with my kids. And that was kind of like the beginning. There were some stepping stones in there, and then last year I opened my own practice.
Yeah, that's amazing. Um, one question I had was, where was your mom during your brother's, uh, after he had the accident, and how is she now?
Um, yeah, she is not well,
Mm,
I would say.
yeah, it's hard when that happens. Uh, when we have to pick our not only our own selves up, but then we don't have that role model either of how to pick yourself up. So you don't have
Yeah,
to go any further. I was just curious if she's ever healed. Watching you heal maybe helped
yeah.
her heal.
Her and I have a very difficult relationship because of everything that we've been through. We are currently like more recently, like since we had a long period of estrangement where we
Mhm.
didn't speak at all. She's never met my youngest son, who's 4. Um, and just last November, we finally started even speaking again. And she's definitely not the same person that she was, like, you know, even 5 years ago when I stopped talking to her, but like certainly like 30 years ago, I'll be 40 next year. So like this is like, decades ago that she was so
Mhm.
awful to me. And she knows, and we've had some conversations, like it was a direct reflection of her own hurt. And that doesn't excuse it or make it okay. But like I have some empathy for her in some regard because I do know while it still hurts and like I still, um, do I want to go back and relive it? No. But
Correct.
like
Yeah.
as a mom and like going through my own trauma and my own recovery, I can see it, I think, from a little bit different perspective. And I have quite a bit of empathy for her. She is still very much deep in depression and regret and, you know,
Yeah. All of it.
mhm.
And for you, what makes you on a day-to-day basis kind of get up and get going? What are kind of your, because you have a purpose and your purpose is to help heal. And I'm just curious, from nursing to owning your own practice, that's a huge shift. So how did that kind of happen? Like what sort of mindset or skills did you manifest, for lack of a better word, to go from that to where you are now?
I think I've always possessed the skills. I don't think it was anything new. I look back and I think about like myself as like a student, like in elementary school or high school or something. Like I've always been so driven and so motivated. I think some of it, quite frankly, is actually a trauma response. I think my mother and her emotional unavailability, like the fact that she didn't give us, but I'll speak for myself, like she didn't give me the attention that I feel like I needed when I was a kid, when I was a little kid. So I feel like I remember learning very early or thinking like if I just do this, then she'll love me. If I just clean the house, then she'll be happy. If I just score really good on this, then she'll notice me or whatever. And so I think that I sort of developed that kind of like constant internal drive, but I think the motivation has always been there. Like I enjoy achieving things. I love learning. um so it's never been like that was never hard for me. And I think the shift from like traditional nursing to owning my own practice was actually like pretty organic and natural for me because of I knew I had such a clear idea of how I wanted to help people. And I knew that the only way that I could do that was to be in charge of it myself. Because even in the past 5 years, I spent time working for a chiropractor and some time in like a wellness clinic. And like, even in that, capacity, it was still not what I wanted and how I felt like I was destined to help people. And yeah, so I feel like it was pretty organic, like getting into that, and then also realizing like at the same time that like one of the things that's really really important for me is for me to show up for my kids different than my mom showed up for me.
Mhm.
And for me that meant like I wanted to be available. I want to, like, every single day, with very few exceptions, I am the one that drop my kids off at school and pick them up from school. And then like when they come home, like we are it's mom's here and like we do, whatever. And that's it's not that it's easy. Like I have a
Yes.
4-year-old and an 8-year-old, and like sometimes I want to pull my hair out and I yell and I'm triggered and I get,
Yeah.
there's bad days. It's not like it's all rainbows and sunshine, but I knew like that's just a super big priority to me. And the only way for me to be able to have that was to have the freedom and flexibility in my own schedule by being my own boss.
Yeah.
Um, so I can hold those two things at the same time. I don't know. Does that answer the question? I kind of forget the question.
Yeah, no, well, the question was just about kind of your mindset, which, yes, you answered it,
Oh
and
yeah.
mine was kind of the same with my photography business. I knew I wanted something different for my kids and I. So, when I quit my job, I didn't really feel like I had a choice because I was calling in sick and my kids needed me and there was field trips. My son has cerebral palsy, so he's in a wheelchair. And when he was little, there was budget cuts, all this stuff. But I knew when I started my business that I was gonna design my business around kinda exactly what you're doing, being there for my kids, and at the time I had 4 stepkids, and being the one that was home, being the one that the motherly figure in the home because I never had that. My mom and my dad both worked full time, and, uh, it's not easy, and it's very selfless. A lot
Yeah.
of hours are put in, and uh,
Yeah.
you know, yeah,
Yeah. And
so
I work like really, sometimes I work late at night if things are, I'm a health coach. So I'm always like telling people, like, make sure you're getting 8 hours of sleep. But in reality, like, I don't always get 8 hours of sleep
yeah.
because I have to counter that with what's most important to me is my family and my children, and like putting my family first and like spending time. Like, we sit down at the dinner table every single night and eat dinner
Mhm.
together. I'm there to pick them up with very few exceptions. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, how did you get your first client?
Oh gosh, how did I get my first client? I don't actually even remember who my first client was right off the top of my head.
Mhm.
I think it was a friend. Oh no, I
Okay.
remember. It was a friend of a friend. It was actually my mother-in-law helped me get my first client. It was
That's
one of her
amazing.
friends.
Okay.
Yeah. She's the best. I love
Yeah.
her.
And how did it go? Did you transition straight into the trauma-informed, functional health coach, or were you just a health coach and now you kinda niched it down?
Yeah, I did not include that initially. I did very much more like generalized, um like just health coaching,
Mhm.
using functional labs. And I didn't really have a niche until early this year was really when I opened my practice January of last year. So I feel like I spent the whole year, like just trying to figure out like who is it that I'm trying to serve. Um, and yeah,
Did you have to go through the ones you didn't wanna serve first? I know that's what I had to do with
yeah,
photography.
yes. They still sneak in there sometimes, or
Yeah.
I'm like, it seems like a good fit, and then we get into it and I'm like, oh darn it, like this is not a good fit.
Yeah. That's kind of how it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
And what do you work through? So everybody has trauma,
Yeah.
but a lot of people don't realize that that trauma comes across as, like you were talking about, anxiety, depression, headaches, migraines, body aches, all that stuff. How do you kind of educate people on that? Because I'm assuming that's a big part of your business, is just educating and being of value and service.
Yeah. I really, um, that's primarily my role is education and empowering people to take action on in whatever way serves them, because I don't have that answer. Like I'm not going to tell you like this is what you need to do, because I don't know all of the ins and outs of your life. Like I try to know as much as possible. I want to give you the best suggestions I possibly can based on your lifestyle, your where you live, like what's your preferred, diet, those sorts of things. But like I don't know all the nuances of your specific lifestyle and household and all of that. So really I provide a lot of information and encourage people to make the decision that serves them the best. And sometimes that's trial and error. Sometimes that's like try this and see if it works. See if you like this. See if it helps whatever XYZ. And then if it doesn't, like let's go back to the drawing board and try something else. Um, yeah, that's primarily what I do is educate.
And how did you find your path to healing through, like how, I'm obviously it's a lifelong getting over trauma, but what are some
Yeah.
of the steps that you took to find yourself whole again?
Yeah. So that again, totally, it is a lifelong journey. I think I tell people all the time, like, I'm 20 years into this, but this doesn't mean like I'm healed and I've reached a point where I'm like, oh, great, I have nothing else to work on. Like it's a new level, a new devil. Like there's still
Oh.
things like my mom and I still have a difficult relationship. She still triggers me. I still find myself in conversation with her feeling like a scared 8-year-old little girl. Like, and I'm gonna be 40. Like it's a lifelong process. But I can say that some of the most pivotal things that helped me were meditation was kind of the start for me, and that came when I was 24. So I was in therapy, like just traditional talk therapy, from the time that I was very young. Like I think, well, I was actually I didn't include this part in my story. Sometimes I leave it out because it's just still too uncomfortable to talk about, but I was molested when I was 11 also. um, but I was in therapy from 11 until, I mean, forever. I still see a therapist, when I need to. So the traditional talk therapy wasn't, I don't feel like was a big needle mover until I integrated some of the like somatic work, like meditation. When I found meditation, I discovered I immediately, or not, maybe not immediately, but around that same time when I discovered meditation, my next question was like, why does this work so
Mm.
well for me? Because I have never felt calm in my entire life, and I can actually feel calm when I meditate. Why is that? And why has nobody ever told me about this before? And then I felt, I remember having a period of time where I was really angry at like the doctors for not ever suggesting something like this. And that opened the door to other somatic tools. So, like, I learned about EMDR, which is a therapy traditionally used in like a therapy setting where you use like both sides of the brain to help reprocess through events and trauma. So I started doing EMDR. I started doing emotional freedom technique, which is tapping, and meditation. every day. I started meditating every single day, which is kind of funny because now as a coach, like I don't hardly ever do I recommend meditation as like a starting point for somebody because it creates a lot of anxiety to have a lot of trauma and anxiety and depression and then like tell like go sit in silence for even 5 minutes. Like that's very difficult and
Mhm.
very more anxiety produces more anxiety a lot of times. So I don't generally recommend it as a first step. For some reason I was able to do that. And for me, eventually that turned into prayer. And I started to develop a relationship with God and a higher power and felt this sort of like sense of um like purpose and like fulfillment and um that evolved over many years. I think those are probably the biggest. And then also really, really diving into like all of the other like classic health things that I was totally not doing, like stress management and like ruminating thoughts and like nutrition. Food is medicine. And like I ate like crap. I would eat fast food all the time. I was a nurse working on night shifts. So it was just like you eat, eat in like 14 minutes when you can, you're like shoveling food into your mouth all the time. And so like really trying to hone in on like some of the more traditional like health, I guess traditional health things too.
Yeah, your story is so similar to mine. Um, Meditation was my first medicine, and then I got into religion. I did the EMDR therapy, tapping with, I can't think of his name, something Yates. He was on YouTube.
Oh, I don't
And
know that one.
yeah, is it Steve Yates or something like that? Yeah.
Oh,
Um, EMDR absolutely changed my life, but the therapist that did that initiated she was so calm, and it was the first time, and because I've done talk therapy as well, it was the first time I felt safe was in that room with her going processing all the stuff, the tears and the feelings, and it was the healing process is not for the weak. And sometimes it's the tears. y- I always felt so weak because I always was crying. I didn't realize that's because like I just had all this trauma. I
yeah.
couldn't understand why I felt so different than everybody else. I just didn't fit in, how I just tried so hard to people please. I had no idea that that was trauma. I just thought there was something wrong with me.
Yeah.
And so the fact that you t- you're taking all of that and now you're flipping the switch and you're helping other people not feel so alone is uh it's powerful stuff.
Yeah. I'm so honored to be in this position, honestly. And I feel like my relationship with God has really helped me understand that all of that stuff, because a lot of times I tell my story and people's reaction is like, oh my gosh, like you have so much trauma. Like, how did, I'm so sorry. And I've come to realize from like sharing my story now, like, I don't know, 60 or so times that I feel like I'm not sorry.
Right.
And the reason is because I know, like, I don't want to go relive it, but I know for a fact that like this is my assignment on earth. This is why I came into this family and experienced this trauma and had my brother die in front of me and went to the school shooting and like all of those things were to get me to this exact moment right now in my life. And I've never felt more aligned with my purpose and my calling, a higher power, happy in my family. Like I'm so lucky.
Yeah. Uh how do you take all of that, because I've feel the same way, and this is my struggle. How do you take all that and then turn it around and try to find clients? Is that an easy thing or is that a hard thing to, because when you're aware of all your gifts and all the things that you want to do to help people, and sometimes the calls don't come in, and then you're like, what the hell? Like I know my purpose. I know
Yeah.
exactly why I'm here. Why aren't people reaching out to me? Or do you not have that problem?
Well, I don't think that to be honest with you, I don't think I've had that problem really
That's awesome.
yet. And I think that I don't think I really think about it like that. Like I'm not trying to find clients. I believe like to my bones that the right clients will find me.
Mhm.
And part of that for me is just focusing on continuing to share my journey, to share my story, and um, offer empathy to other people and build relationships and connections and genuine relationships and connections. And I really, really believe, like, even in times that are slower, months that are slower, I think that I just kind of take that as a little bit of a reprieve and like focus on, you know, organizing other things or spending time with my kids. Like I intentionally kind of slowed down and like wasn't posting on social media and stuff like over the summer because I knew I wanted to be with my kids. Like I wanted to take them swimming. We went swimming like I forget we stopped counting, but it was like 35 times this summer or something. Like, it was like every 2 days we went swimming. So I don't know. I just
That's
don't
super
think of it
wise.
like that.
Yeah. That's really uh it's wise, and it's also very allowing. It's very flow. It's very, yeah, it's brilliant.
I just trust I trust the process. I trust God. Really, that's what it boils down to. I trust God. I know that I believe that he is in control, and I believe that it's all gonna happen exactly as it's supposed to, and there's nothing that I can do to change that. It's just he's already written the plan.
Yeah. That's that's awesome. So if I were to ask you what's next, what are your thoughts? Like where would you like to be? Where do you think you're going to be in the next couple of years? Do you find yourself being drawn to public speaking more, or writing a
Yeah,
book?
yes
All
to
of it.
both of those.
Hmm.
Yeah, I feel like that's where my heart is I really want to share my story as one of hope because I feel like that's the typical response. Like I said, like people are like, oh my gosh, like your story is so intense, I'm so sorry. But what I want people to focus on more than that is that like my story proves that healing is possible and that hope always exists. Like I don't care what the doctors say, what the diagnosis is, what your past was, what your experiences were, like none of it matters. You can always heal. And I would love to be able to share my story um on a bigger scale. I think a book is something that keeps being put in front of me, and I haven't really
You're
started
busy.
that, but I
Yeah.
think I think I'm going to eventually, but
Yeah, you've
when
got
the
little
time is
kids.
right.
Yeah. And then any advice you would have given your 17, 16-year-old self? That it sounds like you were pretty wise to begin with, based on you had to grow up really quickly and develop that emotional intelligence really early. But any advice that you didn't have that you wish you could have given yourself?
Um yeah, I would tell myself that I think I was probably quite, wise for my age and developed that emotional intelligence at an early age.
Mm.
But I never believed that I was worthy or that I deserved good things, for years. Like probably just in the last like 5 years, I feel like I finally like believe that and actually genuinely love myself. And I did not for many years. And I think that's what I would tell myself is that I I deserve it. I am worthy.
So do you work with people on the internet? I don't know.
Virtually.
Do you work with people virtually?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd say probably 50% of my clients come from local referrals. I do some like I have a local kind of like affiliate, some local physicians and nurse practitioners that don't have the time, frankly, to
Yeah.
um, work with people as intensely as I do. And then I do some stuff with like my chamber of commerce and my kids, school and church and all of that. So
Oh,
probably
yeah.
50% of my clients are local. Um, so I do always offer, if my clients want to meet in person, we can. I have many times met at like Costco and gone through and like helped, like instead of like talking through Zoom about like how to read food labels, like let's go to Costco and like
Oh, yeah.
get your freaking groceries.
Yeah. Wow,
And
that's really important too.
yeah, so I've done that many times. I've done, stuff at parks where our kids are playing and um just I feel like I try to genuinely be friends with my clients because a lot of times they need a friend too. Um but yeah, mostly virtual.
And how can people find you?
My website is holistichealthbymelissa.com. And then I'm on all social media platforms, mostly on Instagram and Facebook at Holistic Health by Melissa.
Okay. Awesome. Is there anything else you want to add before we kind of wrap things up?
Um, I'd like to say two things. First of all, I'm hosting a free masterclass in a couple of weeks, just about like mastering your nervous system and um, fostering that sense of safety that we've been talking about inside of yourself. How do you find that when you've been through so much trauma?
Hmm.
That's on my website, Holistic Health by Melissa /masterclass. You can sign up for that. It's totally free. I forget the date and time off the top of my head, but it's in about 2 weeks. And then the second thing is, I already kind of alluded to this, but I really firmly believe that healing is always possible. It doesn't matter what you've been through, it doesn't matter where you are right now. You can always heal.
Yeah. And with that, that's you can. You can heal and it takes a lot of work and um you know, I know we have to wrap things up, but nutrition's huge. So if you
Yeah.
guys are listening, talk to Melissa because it sounds like she's going to help you get on the right path, figuring it all out. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure.
Thanks.